Hello and welcome to episode 26, titled, What's Love Got to Do With It? Subtitled, Loving from the Unconditional. This is Catherine Cespedes and you are listening to Yogini from the Block, where we talk about taking spiritual practices and spiritual principles off of the yoga mat and into our real lives. You can listen to this bi-weekly podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play Music, and anywhere that you catch your podcasts. Today, I have my wonderful producer here.
John Beethan. Good generic time of the day.
I confused him because I didn't say his name.
It's okay.
So today there are so many things happening. I was just sharing with those that are watching on Facebook Live because we do a pre-recording before we actually do the website, the podcast. And I was just sharing that we're doing this new thought-a-thon, and it's exciting because John and I are working on something outside of Yogini from the Block podcast. So it's exciting to see all hands on deck for this new thought-a-thon. And I'm just going to share very briefly that if you are listening to this before February 17th, you can tune in online or show up at Seaside Center in Encinitas, California. Go ahead and check out www.seasidecenter.org. Check out our show notes. I'll share a little bit more about that later on. But right now, I kind of just want to go into what our episode is about. Now, today is the 15th of February. And if you are listening to this, Valentine's Day just happened, like yesterday. And I wanted to talk about love. It seemed very appropriate. And during my practitioner studies class last night, there was a review. And one of the questions that came up was, and the review is for the midterm that we're taking. One of the questions that came up was, how does love affect your life choices? And so we actually spent a little bit more time on this question than others because as we were going through the answers, Reverend Christian said, if you write down on the test word for word what we're giving you, then you failed. So we have to come up with our own words, 50 words to describe this, which makes sense. And this was a discussion that we had. And when I realized, and you know, I think at the core, we all know this, just as I think at the core, we all know these spiritual principles that I've discussed on previous podcasts. But love really does make a difference when you're doing something. It really does shift the energy in the room because it starts off with the individual, right? And what I've noticed is that, of course, it all starts with our thoughts, ultimately loving thoughts, because when we have loving thoughts, we are more likely to give someone the benefit of the doubt. We are more likely to forgive. We are more likely to have more creative juices flowing because we're not holding on to something that someone said yesterday or something that someone did. Understanding that these things and people's reactions and people's behavior, which is the next thing, is behavior and actions, doesn't necessarily have anything to do with us, but it always 100% has to do with that person. And just understanding that and how love plays into that. And then overall, our thoughts, actions, and behaviors creates our values, what we find to be the most important. And we act upon those values, which were created and understood through our behaviors, and ultimately began and started and seeded from our thoughts, right? So loving from the unconditional, and what does that truly mean? In Science of Mind, we, through classes, foundations, any prerequisites that we have taken, we talk about this idea that God, Spirit, lives within us. So when we pray, or when we do spiritual mind treatments, because all spiritual mind treatments are prayer, but not all prayer is spiritual mind treatment. And what that means is that, when we in Science of Mind say we are praying, it's not that we are praying to anyone. We are praying and speaking with and as God and Spirit, knowing that there is, God doesn't live outside of us. God lives within us. God is us. God acts through us, right? So with that foundation laid down, knowing that our thoughts and actions and values are seated in love, it shifts the possibilities of what can happen. Because, for example, last night, I had to do a meditation for the class, and this was last second. This was like totally, things got shifted around, and I did it last week. Last week I was panicking. Last week I wanted it to be perfect. Last week I noticed I was working completely and totally out of love. Not through love. It was like away from love is what I mean. And what ended up happening was at the end of the night, I went home and I cried because I felt like I failed. I felt like the meditation wasn't good enough, which is kind of funny because when you get out, if you do a meditation, you can't expect people to come out and be like, wow, that was awesome. That was great. Like if it was a good meditation, then they went somewhere and they came back, right? But anyway, I noticed here that there wasn't self-talk, but there was a lot of feeling. And that's how I knew that there was a record playing underneath my self-talk that I typically have, and you guys have heard. There was something underneath that was not kind, and that was not out of love. And it's interesting how things happen, because this week, with something being so last minute, with so many things happening, the new thought-a-thon coming, we have convention that's going to be at Seaside. We have Ricky Byers that's coming to Seaside. We have Easter coming, and I do the marketing for all of this, and I'm behind the scenes for all of this. And still, I decided I can take on a meditation. This is what I do. This is the reality of who I am. This is what I'm open to do, and I would love to share a meditation. So yesterday I came out of love, because by the end of the day, I was just so proud of myself. And it's not to say that this meditation was any better. It's just the way it felt within me. The thoughts that I was feeding myself through the meditation, before the meditation, and after the meditation was truly felt. And so my behavior was to be completely into the conversation that was being had during class, and my behavior was to be completely open to the shifts and changes that were happening that day. And I noticed that this is what happens when I'm in that space of unconditional love. It doesn't mean that you don't plan. It means that you plan, and if things shift, your heart is open to accept and to move into that direction if necessary. It means that I am allowing this bigger essence, this bigger entity of love, of God, of Spirit to work through me. And I think I really and truly got it last night, because I had made plans for Valentine's Day, and I got home and it completely shifted. And instead of me getting upset, I said, okay, we'll work with that. We'll see what I do after the dinner that was planned. We'll see what I was truly open to the intention, and the intention behind Valentine's Day is something that I really think that I forgot for a long time, because for me, Valentine's Day became this huge marketing scheme. Like, I don't know, card makers, people, like, you gotta share love this day. But it's not that. It's the intention behind it. The intention that I'm going to show this individual that I care about them. Not only do I care, but I appreciate them. Not only do I appreciate them, I enjoy their presence. I enjoy who they are. And it's not only for your significant other. I noticed that there's this, I'm not sure if it's new, but it's the first time I've heard it, Galentine's Day, right? Where you celebrate your friends, your girlfriends, you go out if you don't have a partner. And just sharing that love with family and friends, you know, sharing candy. Got a lot of candy yesterday. And just little things to show people like I enjoy your presence. I enjoy who you are. I enjoy you all completely, the way that you show up in this world. And intentionality is really what opened me up to say, okay, I understand this, because living and being part of this New Thought movement opens up your heart over and over again. And there is this quote, I wish I could remember by who, that your heart, like life will continue to break open your heart over and over and time again until you just leave it open. And recognizing, back to that question that we had during our practitioner studies, that living out of love really allows us to be more open to the possibilities of what can happen. And what I've noticed is that people enjoy working with you. They truly enjoy being around you, because there's nothing that you have hidden. There's nothing, because again, with love comes communication. And this takes practice. There comes a communication. Also, with love comes this, for me, it's so important, this enjoyability factor. Like, you know, we changed this up on Kat, but she was able to work with it. And that happens all the time. And I think at first I came from this space of, I got to do it all. And I truly just surrendered with everything that shifted yesterday, and taking on roles and responsibilities that, weren't planned for me in my day, and just being open to it, just saying, you know what, use me, God, just I'll download it. I'll be that vessel. I could do this with God. I could do this with God. All things are possible. I can do this through spirit. So again, it's the intentionality. I went into the meditation this week yesterday thinking, I just want them to let go. I just want them to feel this thing that I'm feeling. I want them to let go, because again, this is all hands on deck, right? I just want them to enjoy what is to come, because what is to come is so big. It's so much bigger than we are. What is to come is so much more beautiful than anyone could have imagined. Each one of us is just playing one very vital role, but it's just one. And knowing that I don't have to do it all. I don't have to control it all. I can release and I can let go, and I can trust that someone like John Beethan is going to do what he needs to do. And I can trust that Susan Sullivan is going to do what she needs to do. And I can trust that I can stand on stage without having to run back and forth to do it all. I can trust, and I can let go, and I can love these individuals that I'm working with, and I can show them how much it is that I love them simply by loving them. The intentionality of trusting, the intentionality of being genuinely happy when I see them. Those things for me, maybe not so much for them, but for me, makes all the difference in the world. And when it comes to relationships, this intentionality that we first plant into our thoughts, then move into our behaviors and our actions. And Valentine's Day it really brings that microscope down. And it magnifies, right? It truly magnifies how our significant other, our friends, our families, may or may not feel about us. And if we get into our own head that we don't have a significant other and we can't enjoy this, or we get into our own heads and we think that we don't have enough friends so we can't enjoy this, then ultimately that thought becomes that action. That action and that behavior may be that you're a little salty and bitter, and that's okay. It's not bad. It's just, that's what it is, right? That's the truth, that's happen. And your value may become that Valentine's Day is a day that I shrug off, and I won't acknowledge it. I won't say it to anyone. And that's not saying that's good, and I'm not saying that's bad. That's just the reality of it. And this is just an example of how those thoughts really create the action behavior, and it grows into the values, as opposed to, not saying that one is better than the other. These are just examples of knowing and thinking that, Valentine's Day is awesome, man. I can show my partner how much I appreciate them. I can really show them off. I could do this. And so my behavior is that I'm going to plan something. My behavior is that I'm going to, show them And what's interesting is that when your intention is that way, no matter how big or how small that gesture is, it will be felt. It will totally be felt within you. And so what you value is not so much the day, but the experience of the day. It's the experience of those gestures. It's the experience of sharing that laughter, of sharing that joy, of sharing what occurred. You know, for example, I had a whole plan for Valentine's Day, right? I wanted to show Kevin that I was being thoughtful. I wanted to show him that I love him. I wanted to show him. I ordered lunch for him, made sure that it got to him. And I got home and I had a whole dinner planned. I figured it out. And when I got home and I opened the door, he was fully dressed. And I was like, all right, things just changed. Whatever I had planned is out the window. But I know that whatever he has planned, he planned it with the same amount of love and thought and intention that I planned the night. And so, you know, I had dinner planned along with like a stargazing. And so I got dressed with just seeing him the way he was dressed. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something like that. I don't wear heels very often, like the thin heels. I don't wear skirts and dresses too often, but I was like, you know what? I will do this. I will do this because the way that he is presenting himself, the amount of love that is radiating off of him, this feels more appropriate than jeans and sneakers. Just, you know, being in tune to that. And values. I wanted him to feel like I valued the work that he put into planning the night. And so I was going to show him how much I valued that through my actions and through my behavior and through my gestures. And we went out to dinner. It was a wonderful dinner. It was very serendipitous. We met someone, long conversation, and made a great connection. And my plans afterwards were to go stargazing, which is a little further down where we live in Ocean Beach. So right away I switched gears and I was like, what's closer here? And we ended up going to like Mount Soledad, and we ended up seeing the houses there, and we ended up seeing the view of San Diego from there. And it was very small. It was a very tiny gesture, but it ended the night with such appreciation. Like, I saw what you did. I saw how much work you put into this, and I still want to do my part. And so that, how would you say that kind of like knitting together of two plans, they were completely different plans, is really how love expresses. It's really how you see love shifting and working its way through you, through your new choices. This is how love shows up as a new choice. Because again, instead of like getting like, you know, angry and pissy, like I had plans and you changed them and you made this reservation, I was like, okay, let's do it. We're out. Let's do this. It opened us up for a bigger evening than either one of us had planned, because now we have merged our both plans together. And this is just an example of how that thought of I want you to feel appreciated grew into this action between the both of us, and this behavior between both of us to show you are appreciated and our value, that we show each other and communicate with each other how much we appreciate one another. So again, the intentionality of what we decide to do with our lives and how we make choices. When we decide to choose love over everything, the Beatles got it right. Beatles totally got it. Is that we, again, open ourselves up to possibilities. And this doesn't only apply to partners. This is absolutely true with ourselves. If we are single this Valentine's Day and we decide, you know what, I'm going to call up 2 other of my girlfriends who are also single, and we are going to love ourselves. We are going to get manicures, or we are just going to watch movies indoors, like in our homes with some popcorn. Or I'm just going to stay home by myself and I'm going to do a face mask and I'm going to do my toenails. And if you're a man, like, I'm just going to call the guys and we're going to do whatever guys do. I don't know. What was our movies? I'm not sure what guys do. I'm totally a girl, clearly. But the self-love, the love for family, the love for your coworkers, the love that you share that comes from you, that is unconditional, that is not, and by unconditional, I mean, if you don't make plans, then I don't love you. That's a conditional love. And I witnessed this so much last night when I realized that I didn't wait for him to make a plan for us. Because I love him, whether he plans something or not, I got us. And when you know and you feel that it's reciprocal, the options and just the creation is just unlimited. So again, this is for self. This is always about self. And this self-love to ourselves is always reflected in the person that we choose. It's always reflected in the people that we surround ourselves with. And we're in constant communication, like back and forth. Like I noticed that with my best girlfriends, they're all in New York, and yet they make it their mission, I feel, to stay in communication. And I feel that love, and I know it, and I recognize it. And whenever anything big or small comes up, they reach out to me. And there's not a day, I promise you, there's not a day that these women don't go without talking to me or reaching out like, yo, Kelly, you've been quiet today. What's up? You know, so like knowing that love for Valentine's Day, for any day, but it's magnified during Valentine's Day, really comes from ourselves. So knowing this truth, knowing that we are love, knowing that God is in all things, Spirit, Allah, million different names, one truth, one divine entity, one divine source is in all spaces at all times. I know that our hearts are open, our imagination is growing, our creativity is expanding. We are reaching beyond the limits that we ever thought that we could, knowing that we are perfect, whole, and complete exactly how we are. And all those that come into our lives, come into our space, continue to show us that unconditional love because we are reflecting that love that we are. Knowing that I release these words into divine law, knowing all is well. Send me an email if you have any questions, and so it is.